Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Ask Parul. So we have our guest Prashant Mohan, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of one of the famous website called as Sharesight. So I'll tell you a little bit about Sharesight. It's an online portfolio tracker that empowers investors by simplifying complex investment data, helping them make informed decisions and become investment savvy. With over 400,000 users globally, the goal of Sharesight is to bring institutional level insights to all investors, whether you're a beginner or experienced investor, and maybe even an intermediate, such as if you're an accountant or financial advisors. Welcome, Prashant, to my channel. So I think that obviously gives us a very good view that ShareSite is not just a mere performance tracker, but it goes much beyond that. So not only it shows the true performance, which potentially some brokers may not be able to showcase, then currency movements, even for things like commodities, etc., we can track that. If you are a diverse kind of an investor across different geographies, then it helps you. I think the best thing is that it makes your tax return a breeze. It definitely makes it so simple. And on top of that, at regular intervals, not just at the time when you have to file a tax return, but even at regular intervals, it helps you to make data-driven financial decisions. So for me, I think those are the collective, like a value proposition for ShareSite and not just a mere performance tracker. Do you think that am I right or am I missing something?
100% correct. 100% right. The other thing is also again, like many of your viewers might have read this book by James Clear called Atomic Habits,
Yeah,
and
that,
yeah, it's a fantastic book, and it's all about getting into habit of doing the right thing repeatedly over a long period of time, and how that changes your life. And financial decisions and investment decisions are a lot about keeping track of why you did what you did.
yeah,
With ShareSite, you're literally able to annotate every decision you make with notes and specific hypothesis on why did you purchase this at this price? What was your thinking? And it's always good to go back and refer to these decisions. Now, yes, you can do this on a spreadsheet, you can do this in your diary.
yeah. But it's
It's
tedious.
not, it is tedious.
Yeah,
Now, here's a single place where you can track everything, build some really good investing habits into you as an everyday investor,
yeah,
and that's like makes you as a much more disciplined and, like you said, a data driven investor.
yeah. So is this platform only suitable, let's say, for active users with multiple assets across multiple geographies, or maybe it's also relevant for regular users, passive users, for example? The reason why I'm asking is because and you can maybe touch upon the different variants of tools available. I know there is a free version which just have a limitation of up to 10 holdings, but then there are other versions as well. So just wanted to understand that what kind of investors is best suited for share side and what if basis on your persona, whether you're a passive investor or you're really active across multiple assets, what share side has to offer to these different kind of investors.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, fantastic question. So again, like, whether you're an active investor or a passive investor, the need to keep track and understand actually what your assets are still pretty much the same. It's just probably the frequency with which you access certain information is not as much. But I can show you when I show you a little bit of a demo, even as a passive index investor, how useful ShareSite can be to just understand, even as an ETF investor, for example. You just have like 3 or 4 ETFs, and you have a bunch of holdings. You regularly keep doing a DRP into the same thing. Yes, on the one hand, it's probably not, you're not making active decisions at every point in time, but understanding what actually you hold and at what price point and what's the valuation, I think that's super relevant and important. So I would say no matter what type of investor you are, it's a super useful tool. It's literally like your financial journal. It's your financial life, investing life at least, that you are able to keep track of. And the only equivalent I can think of is whether you're whether you're an active spender or a passive spender, you still need a bank account. It's similar to that, where you just need to keep track of everything properly.
Yeah. So while we're talking of demo, maybe we'll just get straight into the actual tool. Let's see what features it has. And yeah, I think that would obviously help whatever we've spoken so far, it would help us to get a real life
Yeah.
feel.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. I've got this demo portfolio. I wish it was true, but it's just a demo portfolio. I've called it my portfolio, and which has this fantastic gain of 23%. But let's jump into the components, right? So I've got a combination of direct stocks like Apple. I've got an ETF that invests in Asian technology companies. I've got Reliance Industries from India. I've got TCS, again listed on the National Stock Exchange. I've got like the VTS and then some domestic stocks in Australia and so on. So there's a bunch of stocks and ETFs in this portfolio. And you can see what I mentioned. Let's take Apple, for example. You have the price, the current price, the quantity, its value. And then you have those three components that I mentioned. So you have the capital gain, the dividend gain, the currency gain. That gives you the total return. Let's say, for example, you want to jump into, let me just take TCS, for example. Um, I'll dive into this particular holding. So you've got, I've bought 200 shares on the 6th of December 2015 at a certain price. And on that day, what was the exchange rate of the AUD and INR? You can see every dividend declaration from the time you bought. So go back to the time you bought, and every single dividend has the exchange rate at which those dividends were converted from INR to AUD. So you've got all of this dividend information here. And you also have a number of things to hold. You've got the average purchase price. And in this case, it was all purchased on the same day. But let's assume you were doing dollar cost averaging. You've got multiple tranches. Then this average purchase price would show actually what was the average of the weighted average of all the purchases in this particular stock you've made. And then you can see that there's a currency gain, which is negative in this case. And that basically is because the Indian rupee has fallen against the Australian dollar in this period of time. And that's fallen at an annualized rate of about 1.5% per annum over the period of the time that you've held. So some of this gain that you've made in the form of capital gain has been wiped out by the currency loss. And then you can see the dividend gain, the dividends are yours. So that's again another piece of information that you can see right through in this case. This graph here, by the way, we are working on a new holdings page, which will be refreshed. It's currently in beta phase. It'll start looking a lot more modern as we go along with this testing at the moment. So that's your investment. And these are those notes and files that I mentioned. Every decision you make, every file that you want to upload, that's with regards to that particular holding, you can actually keep track of all of that. So coming back to the overview page, let's jump into some of the reports and some of the more popular reports that I've seen. One of my favorite reports is this one called the Future Income Report, which basically shows all the future dividends that have already been declared. So take all of your portfolio and look at all the declared dividend information. And that tells you what all is coming forward. But my favorite hack with this is actually, what did you receive in the past year? So I'm going to change the date filter here and go back in time to see, okay, what income am I generating from this portfolio on a monthly basis?
Yeah.
So in this case, I've aggregated it as a month, and by currency, you can see the total income that you've received every month, right? There are some months where the dividend declaration happens and you get a lot more money, but this gives you a good indication of what your next year is going to look like.
Yeah.
Can you just live off your investments? And these are, while it may not be true today, over a period of time, if you build sufficient portfolio, you will be able to generate enough income from your portfolio. So this is one of my favorite reports over here. There's a bunch of other things. Contribution analysis is another really good report, which basically talks about performance attribution. So let's say what that is telling you is, if I made $100, where did I get the $100 from? In other words, which holding of mine contributed the most towards my return information? So in this case, I've left it as do not group. And you can see that of every $100 return I've made, $84 of it comes from Apple.
Apple.
And
Yeah.
what this tells you is a relative importance. So if I just order it in the order of decreasing order, you can see which of these stocks contributed to my portfolio return in those percentage amounts. And that's again broken down by capital gain, dividend, and currency gain. And there are some advanced options where you can look at open and closed positions or just open positions. So let's say you've sold some stock, that's a closed position. So you can look at it from inception, and you can play around with the date filters again to work out the contribution analysis over different periods of time. A brand new report that we've just launched is called the and let just load. It's called the exposure report, and what this does is actually look at all your direct holdings as well as the ETFs in your portfolio and work out your exposure to particular stocks, particular markets, currency, all of it. So it's by default we load it with do not group, and let me again order it by decreasing order. If you see Apple, again, in this case, you can see that I've got direct holding of Apple, but I also have exposure to Apple via this ETF. And you can see the total exposure towards that. Same thing with BHP. You can see I have direct holding of BHP as well as via these ETFs as well. And then I have a direct holding of Reliance and so on and so forth. You can see similarly how like the same thing with Westpac, you have a direct holding as well as what's inside it. And again, you can play around with, okay, which country am I most exposed to? And given how much of a contribution Apple has to this particular portfolio, it's showing the US has about 70%, Australia's 14%, India's 12%, and so on and so forth. This is again a really interesting report to explore. And even as a pure ETF investor, if you kind of disaggregate the components of your ETF, you can then see where your exposures lie, and even if there are any overlaps between the ETFs you already hold, and so on.
So do you have something like an academy or anything, like how do people navigate this? Because for some people it can be very technical, right? I mean, like if they don't really understand how to interpret the report, etc.
Yeah. So what we've just started doing is also each of these reports will have a little video associated with them. So if you just click on this video, it gives a brief explanation of what that report does and how you can explore it in further detail. So yeah, we've just started doing that, and that sort of onboarding or explainer for every report is available inside the product itself now.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
No, just finally, a whole bunch of these tax and compliance reports that are also available. Again, one report that is super useful is what is called the unrealized capital gains tax, which is particularly useful for Australian investors. And that's because in Australia, we do have this ability to change your sale allocation method. So there are various sale allocation methods, such as first in, first out. So that means like if you have multiple purchases of the same stock, you can choose to elect that, okay, I'm selling that particular holding to whatever outcome you want to achieve. Do you want to minimize your tax? Do you want to maximize your gain? All of those returns. So you can, again, this is a really useful tool for planning taxes, and you can play around with this sale allocation method, which at the moment is set to minimize CGT, but you can change it to any of these settings like first in, first out, last in, first out, and so on. And not only can you do that at a portfolio level, you can also do that at an individual holding level. And all of this is automated. It's particularly useful, again, as we come towards the end of the financial year. People do what is called tax loss helling, which is basically if you have some duds in your portfolio, you can get rid of it and offset those losses against any capital gains that you've made. And this is a really useful tool for those purposes. I can talk about Sharesight for the entire day. Just one last part. I'd love one other favorite part of mine is this share checker. And what the share checker does is basically shows you a hypothetical $10,000 investment and how that's performed over a period of time. And let's say, for example, 10 years ago, I invested in Google or Alphabet, Let me pick the one that's in Nasdaq. And the utility of this tool again is demonstrating that share split information. Now, anyone who's had a brokerage account will know that when you have a share split or a bonus share declared, what the brokerage does is automatically associates a $0 cost base to that. And it could get very confusing when you visualize that versus your actual performance. And when it comes to Sharesight, what you will see is like in this case, in 2022 there was a share split, and therefore the quantity completely changed, and that cost base is then equally allocated across all the split shares, and which is why you'll see this funny drop here.
Mm.
Uh, I can't remember the exact number. I believe it was a 1:20 split, which drastically reduced or increased the quantity of shares, and your cost base gets adjusted. But this is a really fun tool to just play around with those questions of what if I had invested some amount.
Yeah.
Now, a key difference again compared to like say you can obviously just type the ticker code in Google and see on Google Finance what it does. The key difference is then it's much more relevant to your currency. It's much more relevant to any kind of dividend income that you might have received, and that's where it's a super useful tool to even just have a quick check on how things are doing with the particular investments.
And how can people sign up for it? And I believe they are different tiered, right? So if you are just signed up, I think ShareSide gives up to 10 holdings free, then there must be some features which are not available for free users, but only for paid users. So how does that look like, and how can people
Absolutely.
sign up?
Yeah, absolutely right. So, you know, uh, listeners to this channel should definitely sign up using sharesite.com, and Parul's link is there in the show notes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So please sign up using that. And you're absolutely right. Up to 10 holdings and some basic reporting is available in the free plan. We are a freemium SaaS product. What that basically means is you can be on the free plan for life uh, if you want, but there are some nice reports that get unlocked as you go into the tiered plans, both in terms of the number of holdings you can track as well as the reporting available for each of those plans. So we have a number of plans like starter, investor, and expert. Uh, each of these gives you the number of holdings is a key driver, and then the number of reports that you can access. The most common plan that a lot of people sign up to is the investor plan when they upgrade.
Do you have that? Like, can you show us that one as well? The investor plan
So all these reports and features that I showed are on the investor plan.
are on the investor plan. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So all of these are on the investor plan,
And that's your
and
plan. Like that's the most best-selling plan, you would say.
that is the best-selling plan, I would say.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I'd highly encourage. It costs nothing to sign up. Just use the link
Yeah.
in the show notes. You can sign up using that and have a play around. And that's why we made it a freemium product, so that
Yeah.
it takes time for people to understand what is the use case of this product,
Yeah.
why is it beneficial, and no matter how much Parul or I tell you, you can go and try it out, and it's completely
Absolutely.
free of cost.
Yeah, and I think I would also like to tell all the viewers that if you're using my link, then you would get additional discount as well. So if you're applying for the annual plan, you can get at least 3 to 4 months of additional for free. So that's an additional benefit that you can get by using my link. But I think, like Prashant was saying, I think most of these reports seem to be on the investor plan. If that's too much for you, at least sign up, go start playing around with the few portfolios that you have, around 10 holdings. And then, of course, if you are interested, then please do upgrade your plan as well. And of course, you can use my link if you want to get additional discount.
That's right, exactly right.
Cool, Prashant. Any last things that you want to say about the reports or share side before we conclude this podcast? Any last thoughts that you have?
Yeah, I think like similar to what you read out in the description, we are constantly working on the product, trying to improve it. And our aim is to basically bring those institutional level insights to everyday investors. And so that we become smarter about it.
Yeah,
You've seen various stock markets related movies where it all tends to be extremely emotional. I myself have lived through various stock market crashes and scams and all kinds of things that have happened in the past, which are all basically related to extreme emotion, I would say. And this is where, having a logical companion to your investing journey
Absolutely.
is a really useful thing to have by your side. And yeah, that I'd say just go and give it a try. Costs nothing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Prashant. I think I've really learned so much about ShareSide, especially all the reports and the currency movements, franking credits. I'm in Australia, so I understand how taxation can be a pain. But I think, yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful session. And I hope we'll continue to do some more of these. If the audience is specifically interested in a specific report or a feature, we can definitely just do a dedicated podcast or a session covering a specific topic. But I think this would definitely help everyone to get an end to end understanding about ShareSite and at least get familiar with the tool, start playing around with the tool, and of course, get the basic benefits out of it. So thank you so much, Prashant. It was lovely having you here. Thank you for taking out time. And yeah, I'll see you the next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on the channel.
Pleasure.
Thanks. Bye.